Good morning, non-public schools. Nice to be with you again. I'll give just a second for everyone to get into the screen here. Again, good morning and welcome to the September consultation meeting for the ESEA title programs and IDEA specialized services. My name is Dr. Maura Anderson. I am the non-public supervisor. Are you able to hear me? Okay, I'm sorry, I'm getting some feedback. Again, my name is Dr. Maura Anderson. I'm the non-public supervisor. I would like for you all to mute your microphones, turn on your cameras, and any questions that you may have throughout the presentation, please write those questions into the chat box. We will answer the questions in an email response and send that out to the listserv. Time permitting toward the end, if my team sees that there are questions that may be answered quickly, I will try to get those out before the Title III presentation, but please put all questions in the chat box. Our meeting norms for today: we will use our time wisely, starting and ending our meeting on time, treat others with respect, listen attentively, document topics outside of the agenda and table those items for a later agenda, avoid side conversations and use of cell phone off topic. And again, you are muted, so thank you for that. For our team here, you will get to meet the title team throughout our year together. These consultations are ongoing throughout the year. I do want to pause and give the team who is present with me time to introduce, and then I do believe we may have Amy from DPI also available. I would ask you to unmute after Liz to introduce yourself as well.
Good morning. My name is Liz Izzo. I'm the Title III coordinator for MPS.
And Liz works with all three service providers. Amy, are you here?
I am here. Yes,
Hi,
I am.
Amy.
Hi, thanks for having me today. Amy Michelik, I am the Title III or Multilingual Learners in Title III consultant for the Department of Public Instruction.
Thank you so much for joining us. And as I said, you will get to meet the rest of our team throughout the ongoing consultations. Some of them may also pop in throughout the meeting. So we'll move on. We'll start our agenda with Leighton Cooper with 21st Century Community Learning Centers.
Thanks, Dr. Anderson. Mr. Cooper is on his way, so I'm stepping in for this morning to assist and present on our 21st Century Community Learning Center programs. Thanks, Dr. Anderson.
Absolutely.
Would it be possible, Dr. Anderson, for me to share my screen?
You have co-host capabilities.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. I am going to make sure that I have my, I think I'm seeing the presentation. I have it, my PowerPoint all queued up here. There we go.
Okay, we're seeing your emails now, Beth.
Oh, no.
The presentation did pop up.
It did. I moved it to the wrong screen.
It?
I moved it to the wrong screen. Here we go.
Okay.
There we
you
go. Okay, here we go. There we are. Okay. Oh. Thank you. So sorry. Bear with me for my inability to move to this presentation screen, but let me walk through. Our purpose intent this morning is to share with all of our Title III as part of Title III. Part B, information about our 21st Century Community Learning Center programs. This program is a federally funded grant program that Milwaukee Public Schools has been fortunate to receive for 40 of our programs across the city and across Milwaukee Public Schools. This is a federally funded program, however, and the opportunity to participate in 21st century programs is open to the community. So students who do not attend Milwaukee Public Schools may attend our 21st Century Community Learning Center programs. So I'm starting out here with the intent here at our time together is to share that we are asking and inviting our private school partners to fill out a private school affirmation form confirming that we've shared this information about our services with you and when and where and how those services are provided. And then I'll share a copy of that link with you at the end and in our chat. But if you look here, this is a link to our DPI's form, which is a private school affirmation form that is fillable. You just click in it and it's very easily completed. Once you fill out that form, we're asking you to please complete it after it's completed to submit it to Jenny Acevedo from our team who will document that for us. So in moving on in terms of what is a 21st Century Community Learning Center, it is a program that is created to provide academic enrichment opportunities during non-school or out-of-school time hours for children, particularly those who attend high poverty and low performing schools. Our 21st Century Community Learning Center grants help students meet state and local standards in core academic subjects, particularly such as reading and math, through a wide array of enrichment activities that include social emotional learning, arts, leadership, reading, math, and so on. We also provide educational services for families throughout the school year, from workshops to family engagement activities. So parents of CLC participants are definitely included in programming. We have 40 locations across the city of Milwaukee, as I mentioned. You can find a listing of all of our program locations on the Milwaukee Recreation website. In the past school year, in 2023, we served over 4,800 students, and we operate our programs, our 21st Century Community Learning Center programs, in partnership with 5 community-based partners, and they are listed there: America Scores, the Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Milwaukee, COA or Children's Outing Association, Silver Spring Neighborhood Center, and Journey House. Again, if you would like a listing of our program locations, you can visit our recreation website. And this is where, and this is our specific community learning center website. You'll see a listing of all of our program locations here at the top of the page. And we encourage you to visit that and check it out. How are children's needs identified? For our community learning center programs, student needs are identified through comprehensive school and community data reviews. We look at STAR, academic achievement data, school improvement plans, school climate surveys, youth risk behavior, poverty, and those needs are identified and added to their needs assessment as part of their grant application process. Program partners routinely conduct community needs assessments throughout the year through focus groups, interviews, surveys, and more. The Department of Public Instruction 21st Century CCLC grant requires certain activities to be provided and provides lists of and provides guidance on what activities are allowable. That includes academic enrichment activities, youth development, social emotional development, and recreational activities. And here you'll find a listing of some of the different types of academic enrichment, youth development, social emotional learning, and recreational activities that our community learning centers provide. Activities vary from site to site based on the needs and programming requirement or programming needs of each school. Community learning centers are required to complete program assessments focused on quality improvement. The Department of Public Instruction monitors CLC's 21st century programs as part of its federal grant requirements. Our Department of Recreation through Milwaukee Public Schools also conducts site monitoring throughout the year. Principals, school principals also conduct site observations as well as our lead agency partners throughout the year, at least quarterly. And as part of the grant requirement, CLC programs or 21st CCLC programs are required to conduct annual self-assessments, and assessment results are used to improve program services. If you would be interested in looking at our most recent evaluation report, we work with an external evaluator to conduct an evaluation of all of our community learning center programs. We're currently finalizing our evaluation report from the 21-22 school year, and that will be available soon. But on our website, you will find our 2021 CLC evaluation report for your review. In terms of services per private schools, as I mentioned, MPS CCLC programs are open to all students in the city of Milwaukee. Students are not required to attend the day school of that CLC program location in order to participate. And again, here is a copy of the private school affirmation form, which I will drop into the chat after my presentation. We would encourage you to please fill out that form and return it to our Program Secretary Jenny Acevedo, and her email address is there, and I'll also drop that into the chat. If you do have any questions, you're welcome to ask them now, and I'll stop sharing my screen. But before I do that, I just did want to share our recreation coordinator is Leighton Cooper, and here is his contact information. And I am the manager of our Community Learning Center programs this year, and my contact information is there as well. And I'll stop sharing. And now I can see everyone.
Thank you so much, Beth Marie. Are there any questions about the 21st Century Community Learning Centers for Beth at this time? If something does pop up, you can go ahead and add that to the chat, and any responses needed, we will make sure we get from that department and add it to our response. Thanks again, Beth.
Thank you for the opportunity, Dr. Anderson. Thank you, everyone. Have a great school year.
Absolutely. Before we move on to our next agenda topic, I do have another team member who joined. And then I also see in the chat there are questions about the agenda and the attachments. Those were sent out this morning. I do have a confirmation of email received for 8:15 a.m. So if your systems are delayed, just know that information should be coming to you. And I apologize for any inconvenience. Joe, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Dr. Anderson. Good morning, everyone. My name is Joe Hill. I am the ESCA manager and want to thank everyone for joining us this morning. Thank you.
Awesome. So let me go back to the presentation. And next up, we have Dr. Joanne Burr. Dr. Burr, are you present?
Yes, hello everyone. It took me a moment to get everything set up. And I first have to say a special hello to Lakendra Brown. I used to work with her and it's always nice to see her. So I'm here to talk to you about two different things today. I'm here to first talk to you about Child Find. MPS has Child Find responsibilities for all students that reside within the Milwaukee corporate boundaries. And MPS is the local education agency or the LEA for these students. As the LEA's responsibility towards Child Find, we need to find and locate. That's the same thing. We need to locate and evaluate any student who may be eligible for special education services. So if you believe you have a student with special education needs, please submit a referral to Child Find. And I will put the email in the chat in a second. I know we get a lot of referrals for private schools, so if anyone needs a copy of the referral, please let me know. And the more complete you can complete, sorry, I haven't had my coffee today. The more you can complete the form, it gives us better information in which to evaluate the children. Also, we complete 3-year reevaluations to those students who are already in special education and have not been reevaluated for 3 or more years. So if you currently have a student who is on a service plan, please be in communication with the service plan provider for questions regarding the 3-year reevaluation. Now, many times a team may decide to waive a 3-year evaluation. Please note that for DPI, that is considered an evaluation. So a student, if one is waived, it still is a 3-year reevaluation, because in that statement, we are simply saying that the student continues to have special education needs. The second thing I wanted to talk to you about was services to the private schools. And currently, we see students in grade 3 through 6 who have a specific learning disability, children K4 through age 9 who have a significant developmental delay, and students in K4 and K5 who have a speech and language disability. Those are the students that are eligible for service plans. And as you all know, once we've met a certain financial requirement, students are placed on a waiting list. Currently, we have 7 speech pathologists that provide services to early childhood teachers and to SLD teachers. I want to give everyone the heads up that there will probably be further consulting this school year, as we are having significant difficulties hiring speech pathologists. The district is currently short of speech pathologists. So we may have to find other ways to meet our financial obligation. Any questions? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Burr. We'll continue on. Just because we had, first of all, I want to again welcome you all back to a new school year, but offer an extended and special welcome to the new school leaders. As we discuss some of the topics, there may be a time where I will screen share. I know those of you who are returning are very familiar with the affirmation of consultation forms, but I do want to also pop up that form for our new leaders as we discuss this section of our agenda. So please bear with me for a moment. I do have that already up, or I should have that already up. Let me see. Let's see if it's in this section. Please forgive me. Get to the right screen here. Here we go. All right, are you seeing the affirmation form? Perfect. And so on this affirmation form, it basically lets you know that we are responsible as the LEA for timely and meaningful consultation. And we will have consultations throughout the year. And in those consultations, we discuss each of the required consultation topics, anywhere from discussing the services we will offer, discussing services being provided through our third-party vendors, and on throughout these topics. This form allows you to request services. This is the 24-25 affirmation documentation. This is one of the attachments that you received, and this allows you to request title services for the 24-25 school year. And again, those topics that are those required consultation topics are discussed throughout the year. In the presentation, I will also share other formats in which we discuss, but I just want to make sure you understand as new leaders, the affirmation form in the sections that need to be completely filled out. Again, this is the way that you request title services for the 24-25 school year. This section here allows you to identify which services you are requesting. Of course, if you're in out-of-district school, Title I is the only service that you're eligible for. And we also will need to know whether or not you are planning to pool. And again, shortly in the presentation, I'll explain what that means. This entire section needs to be completed out completely. If you are not requesting services, please mark the no. Do not leave it blank. Once you identify the services you are requesting, this section is very important. As I stated, we will be consulting throughout the year. This is just the first consultation for this year. We'll have smaller consultations. You also have consultations with the service providers who are helping you find ways to meet the needs of your students, staff, and families that you serve. So please mark yes that these consultations are happening. And then, of course, you give us your information, contact information, and ways to connect. The remainder of the form has already been completed for you, just explaining what those services offered will be. And again, returning leaders, I know you're very familiar with the form, but for the new leaders, I just wanted to allow you to see that documentation. And then I will return to the presentation here. And so again, the topics are covered throughout the year. We have consultation meetings September, January, and May, and then also monthly vendor consultation, and that's with your service providers. The due date for that completed form is ultimately March 5th, 2024, but it can be submitted as soon as after this meeting. You'll also notice on the tentative non-public school calendar, you can submit the form along with your enrollment summary form that's also due in October. But again, it's very important to have that form if you are planning to seek services, title program services for the 24-25 school year. For out-of-district schools, you also need to fill out the form and submit that to your district, though. We do not accept affirmation forms from out-of-district schools. Please remove the MPS title as the LEA and put your district's name there. Also, make sure to select yes to Title 1A, even if you don't want the services from your local district. Please CC me when you submit your affirmation to the local district so I can be on the lookout to make sure we include your request for services in our plans. You will receive a copy of this PowerPoint, so if you didn't get the email address, don't worry. Following the consultation, I will send a copy of this live recording with the PowerPoint. For affirmation pooling of title funds, that's if you want to work with another school to maximize services. The pros to pooling funds with another school is that for sure, most at-risk students receive the services. However, a con to that pooling activity would be participating private schools may not receive services because their students tend to perform higher. Schools that choose to pool would only need to fill out one eligibility form for both schools. So before I move on, I just want to remind you, any questions that you may have, please add to the chat pending time remaining prior to the Title III presentation at the end. If there are quick questions we can get out of the way, before the Title III presentation, we will. Otherwise, we will fully respond to all questions in the chat through the listserv. Okay, our next topic then is the enrollment count process. For the enrollment summary report, you are going to be providing us with your third Friday count information. That count date is September 15th for 2023. It's coming up quickly. The enrollment spreadsheet is due on October 13th. And again, if you do not submit your affirmation page prior to that time, you may submit it along with the enrollment spreadsheet. Remember to use the USDA income guidelines, not the choice income. Please note choice income levels are set too high to qualify for students living in poverty. In other words, not all choice students are necessarily students living in poverty. And if you need assistance with filling out this form, you can contact Michael Betts. Again, you will have a copy of this information, a copy of this recording and PowerPoint to have access to that. Again, I do want to stop the share and reshare the enrollment summary form for our new leaders. Let's see if I can get to that. Let's see. Summary form. Is that on this? Okay, please let me know. Did that form pop up? Are you seeing the enrollment summary form? Or are you still seeing the affirmation? Here, let me make sure.
That's still the affirmation.
Thanks, Liz. There you go. So you should be able to see the enrollment summary form now. This first tab here are the instructions page. It's very important that you make sure that you look at the age group for the students. Title program services, especially Title I, are for students ages 5 through 17. So just make sure you look through the instructions thoroughly before going on to the next tab and filling out the enrollment summary. It also gives you the different ways that you can identify or determine students living in poverty, and then it instructs you on how to get started. For the economic status process, you do need to complete the option that you've chosen to determine poverty, and you may only make one selection here. If for these options here, if you choose option 3 or 4, you will need to explain how you determine poverty status. And finally, for the enrollment summary, again, it's just a spreadsheet. All of the information is requested. When you enter birth dates here, if that age falls outside of the guidelines of age 15 to 17, you will not be allowed to proceed. So please take your time to go through and enter the information accordingly. We do have the U.S. Department of Agriculture income guidelines for free and reduced lunch right on the spreadsheet for you. If the family size exceeds 8, then it gives you instructions on how to add additional information. So again, thank you for bearing with me. The returning leaders, I just wanted to make sure that our new leaders are aware of documentation that is due. Again, if you have any questions about the enrollment process or its due date, make sure that you put your questions in the chat. Our next topic, title contacts for schools. Our suggestion is to have a team from each school working with the vendor who represent or works on our behalf as MPS team. Connecting with administrators has been an issue at times for the vendors and our team. A team can consist of 2 to 3 people. Please communicate with your vendor who will be on the team for your school. Team members would be or could be on the listserv to receive communication and or connecting with the vendor to help with communication fee and or feedback. The primary goal of Title I is instruction. Title I is geared toward improving the academic achievement of the disadvantaged. Schools and vendors need to collaborate and discuss what the best research-based curriculum should be used in the Title I-A room. The instruction is specific for math and or reading. It is provided by a DPI certified teacher. Prior to the start of teaching, background checks must be finalized both with the vendor and our MPS team. Students must be assessed pre and post using the STAR assessment. Instructional minutes are expected to be 120 minutes per week unless you provide a request for a different time structure. That documentation is also included with your attachment packet. Small group is the focus. This is not a one-to-one tutoring program. Small groups, 6 to 8 students. Again, unless you make a request for a smaller group form, and that request form is also part of your handouts. Title I, identifying students. We use the needs assessment, which is submitted in July. That assessment is completed in conjunction with your service provider. Eligibility list rankings. Students are to be ranked 1, 2, or 3 based on greatest need. The eligibility list cannot have all ones. This is also a targeted program, not school-wide. So once you rank those students, service provisions begin for those ranked highest at 1. There's a parent consent. That's also part of the handout for English and Spanish translations. We do have other translations. Work with your service provider if you need a different translation to see if we have that available for you. Schools should not randomly distribute forms. Only students that are identified on the eligibility list as the most in need should receive services. And then there's also the handout to identify the exit and entrance criteria. This is not a unilateral decision that the service provider can make, or anyone for that matter. It is a decision that is made as a result of collaboration for all parties involved with the servicing of those students. Concerning professional development and coaching, Title I funds can be used for PD coaching for regular classroom teachers who have Title I targeted assistance students in their classrooms who are receiving services. The purpose of this PD coaching is to better support the title student within their own classroom, creating a connection between the two. The coaching topics must be related to what is being taught in the Title I classroom. Coaching under Title I, the observation can happen in the classroom with the students during instruction, but debriefing needs to happen outside of instructional time, whether that be before school, after school, and or during prep time. For Title I family engagement, Title I funds or allocations can be used for family engagement activities that will help teach parents how to support their children at home in reading and in math. There's a required minimum of 1% of the allocation to be used for family engagement events. The events are only for parents of the Title I students, again, who are actively receiving services. Backpacks, $25 book vouchers, Quest cards are not allowable. Food for parent activities are available on a reasonable and necessary basis as long as those activities are at least 2 hours in length and over a meal time. For the Scholastic Book Fair, it must be paired with another family engagement event. You must have a separate invoice from Scholastic to submit to our department listing each book purchased. A family must be in attendance to receive 1 book voucher. 25 book vouchers, again, are not allowed. There must be a sign-in sheet for the Scholastic Book Fair event so that we'll know who's participating. The Scholastic Book Fair event must be paired with an activity teaching parents strategies on using the book at home with their child. Materials purchased with the Title I allocations are for the Title I student use only. All Title I materials should be secured, locked up at all times. The key should remain within the vendor's management. For example, whether that's a central lockbox for a checkout system or some other arrangement made by your service provider. I will give a pause in case you do have questions to type into the chat. And we can go on to our next topic. STAR testing. All schools receiving title services, whether it's instruction, professional development, family engagement, materials, etc., must complete an eligibility list where students have been ranked by the school and identified to receive Title I services. And again, we're focusing those students who are most in need. All students receiving services must be tested. This includes schools with allocations under $3,000 where only the teachers of those students receive services. All Title I students must be assessed upon entering Title I and prior to exiting Title I. Our recommendation is that that assessment takes place within a week of starting the program. Push-in programs are not allowed under Title I instruction. For Title II, preparing, training, and recruiting high-quality teachers, principals, and other school leaders. Professional development for school personnel. High-quality professional development for private school teachers, principals, and other educational personnel is the focus of this title. It does allow for coaching and mentoring as well. The current law allows LEAs to use funds or allocations for activities under well-rounded education, such as English, reading language arts, writing, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, foreign language, civics and government, economics, art, history, geography, computer science, music, environmental education, career and technical education, health and physical education. Materials purchased with Title II allocations must not go over the amount each school has been allocated. All materials purchased with these funds remain the property of Milwaukee Public Schools and must remain in the Title I-A room secured. Professional development materials should be checked in and out to private school teachers only. It is the vendor's responsibility to ensure all Title II PD materials are checked back in to the title room once they are done being used. Title II allowable and non-allowable expenditure guidelines are also part of your handouts, provided by the Title II services are provided by vendors and or subcontractors that they select. Non-public schools have access to all three family engagement and professional development catalogs. So all service provider catalogs are accessible to each non-public school for Title IIA service requests. For Title IVA, part of the 21st Century Schools Grant, Title IVA allocation should be spread among three categories. Access to well-rounded education. At minimum, you must spend 20% of the allocation in this category. Improving school conditions for learning to ensure safe and healthy students. At minimum, you should spend 20% of the allocation in this category. And then for effective use of technology to improve academic achievement and digital literacy, there's a 15% cap on technology infrastructure, devices, equipment, software applications, platforms, digital instructional resources, and or other one-time IT purchases. These purchases can't be more than 15% of whatever amount is spent under the IT objective. Technology infrastructure is limited to staff devices or district tools that students don't directly interact with. Again, for Title IV, school-wide licenses, basic professional memberships, per ESSA 8501D, the public agency needs to maintain control of the subscription license membership to ensure that it is only used for title purposes. Site license needs to have the name of the public agency and not the private school. Submit a copy of the site license when submitting the invoice. Your service providers will help you with that. Materials license membership subscriptions must be under the control of the LEA. Concerning aligning funding, schools may use all titles and funding allocations associated with each title to pay for an allowable professional development. Again, you do have the allowable expenditures information handouts as part of the attachments sent this morning. For title policies, procedures, and billing process, billing for all titles, you need to submit attendance and evaluations from the PD experiences. You must follow the requirements listed on the PD checklist for both in-person and virtual experiences. The service providers can help you with that information. All coaching mentoring must have a sign-in sheet as documentation that coaching mentoring took place. Sign-in sheet for each PD activity. The private school must provide vendor with the backup documentation within 30 days for coursework within 60 days. It's very important to have that documentation for allowable expenditures in order to be reimbursed for the experience and or coursework. Stipends, per diem, travel, and tuition will be paid after completion and documentation has been submitted. Title does not prepay for services and or materials. Out-of-town conferences, you must provide the hotel receipt, flight receipt, itinerary, proof of attendance, and all registration information. It is very important for you to make direct contact with your service provider. if and or when unforeseen circumstances arise during travel. Non-public staff must communicate those changes with the service provider to seek approval before any decisions are made. The pre-approvals are made based on the information that is submitted. Any changes that occur, and we know sometimes it happens, any changes that occur during your travel, you must be in direct contact with your service provider prior to making any decisions or alterations to what was already pre-approved. For coursework, you must submit an invoice from the university listing specific course and payment for a specific course student is seeking reimbursement for. You should show the term on the grade report and proof of payment. The credit card statement must list the cardholder's name. Tuition reimbursement for a staff member must earn a B or better for undergraduate and graduate courses. The receipt, showing the course that was paid for is also needed for reimbursement. Concerning students, tuition reimbursement for students taking courses, students need to receive a C or better. And again, if you have any questions, please put those in the chat. For all pre-approvals, they must be submitted 30 days prior to the event. It's really important for timely response that you get us that information far enough in advance. 30 days is the requirement. Once the approval is given, the vendor can move ahead with the activity. Once we receive the requests, we try to get them back within 5 days. When filling out the PA request, be as detailed as possible. And I know we have coordinators assigned to each vendor, but assume we know nothing. Even if we did pre-approve something that is now being requested as an enhancement under Title IV, assume we know nothing. Write everything out on the new PA request. For travel, if it's under 100 miles, lodging will not be authorized for single-day conferences within the state unless the distance to the conference or location exceeds 100 miles. Lodging will be limited to the night immediately preceding the conference. Only costs directly associated with the permissible travel within the continental United States will be reimbursed, and this pertains to all titles. Per diem, see page 7 of the travel document. It will not be paid prior to the event date, and there will be no per diem for one-day trips. Again, see page 7 of the travel guidelines. For taxes, NPS will not reimburse for taxes in the state of Wisconsin. So please, non-public staff, try to use your school exempt tax number for all purchases. Regarding stipends, the stipend rate is still $26.33 per hour for teachers, $16.89 per hour for paraprofessionals. The experience and or event must occur outside of the staff member's normal workday. Mentor teachers receive stipends, but not the mentee being supported. Staff members cannot receive a stipend and a credit for a course. It's one or the other. For K4, gym, art, and music teachers, you cannot take part in the Title I professional development experience. Principals and administrative staff, you may participate, but you cannot receive a stipend. Staff cannot charge a consultant fee. So the work to support our children, their families, and the staff who serve them is quite inundating at times, and we appreciate each of you for all you do to help the work run seamlessly and as smooth as possible. To aid in your endeavors, we want to just basically break out the vendor versus school role. For vendors and school leadership, you both will be participating in monthly consultation meetings. That ongoing collaboration is a requirement, and the consultation with our department is ongoing throughout the year, as I stated earlier in the presentation. For vendors, you will establish the equipment materials checkout form. For the schools, you may assist with the distribution of equipment and materials, but the vendor remains in control of inventory at all times. Vendors, you are required to complete the needs assessment on behalf of the schools. And as non-public school leaders, you must work with the vendors to make sure all needs are identified and appropriate services aligned to meet those needs. Please forgive me. As far as filling out pre-approvals, again, the non-public school staff works together with the vendor. Those pre-approvals are also to be in alignment with the needs assessment that was submitted in July. For vendors, you set up the contract services agreements with third party. As a non-public school leaders, you may suggest subcontractors or vendors for the service, but you are not allowed to work with any of the organization of those services. Vendors, you are working to plan instructional services for the Title I program. Schools, you are filling out and revising eligibility lists to help the vendors know how much staff, how many staff they need and what provisions they need to make arrangements for. But as far as planning those services, identifying teachers to provide the services, that is all on the vendor side. From there, vendors, you work with setting up the required PD and family engagement events. You monitor those events, make sure that the sign-in sheets are accessible and filled out, the surveys are completed, and that information is submitted with the invoicing processing. You are to secure the Title I teachers, order materials, and plan with all subcontractors. With that being said, private schools cannot obligate title funds. Private schools receive services, not funding. The service providers help arrange those services based on the needs you identify. You should not be responsible for placing orders. Only the NPS contracted vendor is allowed to order materials once a pre-approval has been approved. You should not be responsible for setting up professional development. The subcontractor in school should not be making plans without the vendor present for the conversation. If this happens, the subcontractor is in jeopardy of no longer being allowed to provide services under title. You should not be responsible for setting up family engagement. You should not be responsible for determining what goes into the Title I classroom. Concerning the ESEA handbook, the ESEA consultation toolkit for private school equitable participation is also one of the handouts attached in today's email. This consultation toolkit was developed in collaboration with districts, non-public school leaders, and our ombudsman. Sometimes things may not happen according to plan, and there may be a reason or need to form or lodge a complaint. We have included the complaint process as a handout. You can work with your service provider and our team upon completion of that documentation, and we will address whatever concerns as needed. But we want to make sure that you know there is a process to lodge a complaint should there be a need to. Schools that relocate, merge, close, or open should notify the ESEA department and their vendors right away. And then the title program revised calendar was also added as a handout. Right away, you will know that the submission deadline for the enrollment summary form has been changed from October 6th to October 13th. But that reprinted calendar has been added for your review. With that being said, thank you for your time today. The English Learners Identification Title III presentation will be next. Liz, I do want to pause to see, were there any chat questions that could lend itself to a quick response here? If not, as I stated earlier, we will document responses and make sure that everyone gets them through the listserv.
It looks like there's a few questions about title instruction being one-to-one, but that might be best in a written form.
Thank you so much for monitoring the chat list, and thank you all for your time. I will make sure we get responses to your chat questions. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Liz Zizzo and her Title III team.
Good morning, everyone. I would just like to start by introducing some of my team members. I see Monica Hubble has
Good morning.
turned on her camera. She's here to support. She's been doing this for a while, so if you have any questions, maybe at the end she can help pitch in. And our director, Lorena Guinea, is here as well.
Good morning, everyone.
And Amy Machelik from DPI is here as well. I don't know if she wants to unmute. Say good
Yeah,
morning.
absolutely. Good morning, everybody. Good morning.
And we welcome all of you. And this presentation we've kind of gone through before, but there's a lot of schools that are new to Title III. And if you're a Title school and maybe in the future, you may need Title III services, it may be good to have some background knowledge. So welcome, thank you, and I'll get started. So the general, first of all, the question of the day is regarding the Title III allocations, and we want to make sure that you guys know that within the next 2 weeks, we are hoping to have those Title III funds available. So the goal is to have those out within the next 2 weeks. And the general purpose behind Title III is to help ensure that English learner students, including immigrant children and youth, obtain language proficiency, English language proficiency, and develop high levels of academic achievement in English. There are 3 required uses of Title III allocations. The first is to develop high-quality supplemental language instruction educational programs, or LIEP, for English learner students, and to help provide professional development that's designed to develop and enhance the capacity to provide high-quality LIEPs for ELs. And third is to promote parental and community engagement for those LIEP programs for English learners. And just a note that non-public schools are not required to provide or allocate funds to all 3 areas. The first area that Title III can be used for is instruction. The Title III teacher must hold a valid state of Wisconsin 395 license, be fully licensed and highly qualified. By Wisconsin standards, highly qualified means appropriately licensed for the grade band or developmental level in which they are teaching. Instruction can be either push-in, where the Title III teacher is in a general education classroom providing targeted assistance to English learners, or the Title III teacher can instruct the English learners in a full-out delivery model in a Title III classroom. So Title III instruction is specific to English learners and promotes content learning and English language development. Title III instruction is not an intervention, and Title III instructional resources cannot support a school's intervention program. And whenever schools have an allocation that is greater than $3,000, we encourage you to provide instructional services. So the second area would be, or if you're looking to purchase or request instructional resources, these are some general guidelines to help determine if they can be allowable through Title III. You would begin by identifying the needs of English learners using the academic data, for example, WIDA screener or access data, parent or student surveys. Then you would determine the resources that your school uses as part of your core program. And just to be clear, in order for us to be able to approve those requests, it's imperative that you share the core program for your school. If we do not know what the core program is, then we cannot know if something is supplemental. So that's very important when you're putting in requests through the PA process to include that information. And an example would be if a school is deciding on using Reading Plan A for the entire student body. In order to use Title III allocations, your school must consider additional resources outside of that reading plan that will help English learners access the core content. Okay, these are some common requests that we've had, but we want to highlight that they are not allowable through Title III. Intervention, technology, office and school supplies, or any replacement of the core curriculum. They are not allowable because they're not considered supplemental. So these are items that should be provided to all students. And any resources that are being requested through Title III must be supplemental. And there is the expenditure guidelines that has an extensive list of what's allowable. Some things are allowable with conditions or just not allowable using Title III funding. Okay, the second area that Title III allocations can be used on is professional development. So when designing or seeking professional development for teachers of English learners, it needs to enhance educators' understanding and use of curricula, assessment measures, and instructional strategies for English learners, effectively increase students' English proficiency, effectively increase educators' subject matter knowledge, or teaching skills, and it should be sustained, so not a one-day or a short-term workshop unless it's part of a long-term comprehensive professional development plan. And the final area that Title III allocations can be used for is family engagement. And when planning family engagement events, you kind of want to first identify the core family engagement activities that are offered to the whole school, and then determine what family engagement activities go above and beyond what your school would offer for all students. For example, if there's a session for families of English learners to dig deep into the interpretation of their students' access scores, that would be considered an allowable event. This supports parents in becoming active participants in the education of their children. So that would be a good example of using Title III funds for a family engagement event. Schools can also consider offering literacy nights specifically designed for parents of English learners. Title III cannot be used to support school-wide sponsored events like parent-teacher conferences. That would be a supplanting violation. And so these are the main 3 required uses of Title III. And in the next section, we'll do an overview of the English learner identification process. And my colleague, Monica Hubble, is also available if there's any questions. So this is just going to be the overview of some of what we'll discuss today, or we'll share with you. So the first part is just more of an update. This was a new process last year, but we wanted to share this information with schools, specifically ones that are new to Title III. If you are a school that opts in, DPI will automatically pull your information from your student information system and load it into the DRC site for the initial upload. This will happen towards the end of September. And just so you guys know, opting in does save some time when access rostering. So it's a little bit more efficient of a process. And I also wanted to pause right now. There was a request to discuss the access growth reports. There was a question that was sent to be discussed today. I reached out to our research and assessment department, and they said that if your school shares data with DPI, you will have a WISE account and you will be able to see the access growth reports. And that if you need assistance viewing those reports, you should make a WISE help ticket on the DPI website. And I'm going to pause in case there is any question on that specific item because it was requested to be discussed.
Liz, can I jump in for one other thing?
Absolutely.
So a reminder for the schools that are not participating in access, but you opt in for WISE, you have to do something within your system to turn that off so that the information does not go and so that you do not get access materials sent to your school. I don't know how to do that within each of your systems, but maybe you can talk to your DPI person or somebody who works with your system and make sure that part is turned off so you are not sent access materials.
Thank you. All right, the next is an overview of kind of how we break up our responsibilities in this process. So like I said, last year was it was new that the access was being pulled from your SIS. What continues to be MPS's responsibility, we will continue to add students into WIDA for the online screener in grades 1 through 12. MPS will continue to upload names into WIDA for access after the initial upload and throughout the access window. And MPS will also have a limited amount of extra booklets throughout the access window. Otherwise, an order can be made and shipped directly to your school. And then on the school's end, it continues to be your responsibility to identify English learners through the HLS, Home Language Survey, and the screener, and retaining the HLS and screener in your student information system or school records, and scanning a copy to MPS. And if you can add names to the EL identification Google Sheet after the initial upload and during the access window, and making sure to return access materials in a timely manner. So this is a great visual of the process. So it begins with the Home Language Survey, which is a DPI required document that needs to be administered for all students that are new to your building. Any student whose HLS that has a home primary language, more than 50%, as other than English, can be added to our Google Sheet. And these students are considered potential ELs. Monica and I make the EL identification sheet for each school. And the EL identification sheet is used as our communication tool since we are not in the same system. Please notify us via email when there's any updates to the Google Sheet. And then if the HLS determines that you can screen the student, you would use one of the WIDA products based on the student's grade level. And then MPS will upload those students to the DRC. And a trained school-based staff member will then screen the student then you will share the score sheets via a Google Share folder. And MPS updates the Google Sheet and adds the students to the Access roster. And finally, you access test the students and continue to identify potential ELs since it's an ongoing process. And here's a sample of the EL identification and request Google Sheet for anyone who's new. This is our communication tool. Student information should be added here before being added to the Access roster. Do not change any columns prior to Q. Column A will be locked. That's for our inter-office notes. And then use the main tab for communication. You can add additional tabs if you need to add information between your colleagues. Please don't delete any names once you've added them, and any columns that are highlighted must be filled out. And those other two. Let's see. If there's anyone that needs to be added to the Google Sheet, just send us an email. We know that staff changes, responsibilities and roles may shift. Just let us know who you would like to have access to the Google Sheet. And a reminder, just make sure that the name entered on the sheet matches what's entered in your student information system. And the earlier this whole process is completed, the better. This will ensure that your school gets testing materials for all students, and it will also make your data more reliable. Here's a close-up of the home language survey. There is a copy that will be included with the handouts, and it should only be given to students newly enrolled in your school. Consider having multiple staff members that are trained in administering the home language survey. Secretaries, counselors, or other staff members may be staff that could support in this process. And then going on to the screeners, for all students who are determined to be a potential EL based on the home language survey, the English language proficiency screener will need to be administered. So first, you would determine which of your staff members will need to be trained. Second, you will email MPS's Research and Assessment Department to request accounts be set up in WIDA. And then you would take the specific trainings based on students in your school. So for the WIDA certifications, depending on who's in your school, if you're a high school, if you have K-8, but most likely staff will need to be trained on the Access Online, the screener scoring, screener for kindergarten, kindergarten access, and screener online. After you complete those trainings, you would contact our Research and Assessment Department. The main contact is Jill. She will be able to provide you with access and permission to score. And she did say that you could reach out whenever you have a question or if you need additional support, clarification. She's very happy to help. This is just a reminder for this year, the K-5 students will only be screened in listening and speaking in the fall of K-5. If the oral composite score is below level 5, then students will take the access test. And K-5 students who enroll after the access window closes in February will take all 4 parts of the screener. And here are some important dates for schools that do not automatically get uploaded. October 11th is the deadline to share your roster with MPS. October 26th is the last date for pre-filled labels, so we need to have students rostered by then in order for them to get the labels pre-filled. Students can still continue to be tested after this date. It's just if they're, you might need to manually fill in the labels. And I guess a strategy to help make that process smoother is if you start with your K-5 students first. So you make sure to hit that deadline of October 26th. All of those booklets will come with their names and information filled in. We highly recommend planning to access test early and if possible, finish in the month of December. This is the access testing window. It runs from December 4th through February 2nd. And these are your contacts. So Monica will be working with some schools. I'll be working with some others. But we're going to continue to collaborate and work together. But this will be in your handout, so if you need to reference it. And we could, I guess we highly recommend creating a Title III school-based team because there's so many parts to it. They can help with the needs assessment, the identification process, and access testing. It can be a lot of work, so having multiple staff members collaborating to get all the parts done, that's kind of our suggestion, and that's how we do it in MTS. There's some additional support set up. There are drop-in sessions for access testing with our members, our colleagues with research and assessment. We have 2 dates lined up so far. It's Tuesday, September 19th from 2 to 3, or Wednesday, September 20th from 3 to 4. And those are 2 dates where you could just drop in. If you have any questions that are lingering, pop in, ask them. You can pop out. You don't have to say that whole time, but we'll be available. And if you can't make those sessions, we also, we're willing to work with you on a different time. So if you can't make those and you still need help, send us an email, connect with us, and we'll try to make something else work. And finally, I have a survey because we would like to know a little bit more about what kind of supports you may need. And let me just see if I can share it in the chat. Let me just drop this in the chat and then we'll be ready for questions. Does anyone have any questions while I throw this in the chat?
Hi, Elizabeth. This is Cheryl Belak from Wisconsin Lutheran High School. Is this working? Are you able to hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So my computer's all messed up. So I can talk from my phone or from my computer. But I am wondering, I actually have a kind of a specific question a bit, but with the access scores, we have students and we're just trying to make sure we have some, because obviously they're still qualify if they're below basically 4.9 below. Now we have some students that are 3, but they have already taken our ELL 3 classes, but we're noticing, kind of looking at our access scores, that they still need support. Are we able to use Title III funds to give them additional support, like for those particular students that are on our enrollment list and things like that for Title, but they've kind of gone out of our ELL 3 course, that they've done all the courses there. We don't have an ELL 4, things like that, but they definitely could use extra support. Are we able to use, like, for example, have a tutoring for a small group outside of, school hours potentially to assist them and supports them using Title funds?
If they scored under that 5.0, they would still be considered English learners, so they could continue to receive supports. If you have a specific question on kind of how to use the Title funds, I could always hop onto a monthly consultation, meet with your school. But I think those requests would come through that PA process at this point for additional ways
the
to
PA
use
process.
those funds.
I just wanted to make sure that we could actually put a PA for that would qualify. But the way I'm looking at it, like you just said, as long as they're underneath that threshold of 5, they are allowed to have that ELL support with the Title III. Then it's just a matter of going through the approval process.
Right. The
pre-approval.
request would still need to be approved. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Perfect. Okay. No, thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, it sounds like there are no more questions. I'm just adding this to the meeting chat.
Thank you so much, Liz and Amy. And I did get the chat message that the attachments were not received. I did resend those. Please forgive me, my apologies. But you should have that information coming to your emails. And again, thank you so much for your time. I'll give you a chance to link onto the survey for Liz, and then enjoy the rest of your day and have a wonderful and safe start to your school year. Thank you.